The Rolex was the last sound my house ever made. After my husband died, the house went quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like it was holding its breath. Friends stopped calling. Meals stopped coming. Even the walls seemed to retreat. But the watch kept going. Every night, when the lights were off and sleep refused to come, I could hear it from my nightstand. A steady reminder that something of him was still here. Still moving, still mine. He took it off the night before he died. Set it down carefully, face up, strap closed. "I don't want to scratch it," he said, half smiling. "I'll put it back on in the morning." He never did. After the funeral, after the paperwork, after people stopped asking how I was really doing, the watch became my anchor. Not because it was expensive, not because it was a Rolex, because it was the last thing he trusted to keep time for him. So when I reached for it one morning and my fingers touched empty wood, I knew something was wrong. At first, I blamed myself. Grief rearranges your mind. It hides things from you and then convinces you they were never there. I checked the drawer, the jewelry box, the bathroom shelf. I even looked in the freezer, embarrassed by the thought but desperate enough to try. Nothing. The silence was louder than panic. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, and did the one thing I hadn't wanted to do since the funeral. I called my son. "Have you seen your father's watch?" I asked. There was a pause. Not confusion, not concern. A pause that knew exactly what came next. "Mom," he sighed. "Stop whining." The word hit harder than I expected. "It's already sold," he continued casually. "I needed the money for my trip." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "You sold it?" I whispered. "It was just sitting there," he said. "You weren't even using it." Using it as if love were a tool. "That was the only thing I had left of him," I said. He laughed, a short, dismissive sound that made my stomach turn. "You still have memories," he replied. And honestly, Dad would have wanted me to enjoy life. Something in me went very still. Not broken. Decided. "Where did you sell it?" I asked. "Why does it matter?" he said. "It's gone." "It matters," I said quietly, "because it was never yours." He gave me the name of the pawn shop like he was reading directions to a gas station. No apology. No hesitation. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. The house felt colder without the ticking. When my hands finally stopped shaking, I picked up the phone again and called the pawn shop. I explained who I was, what the watch meant, that it had been sold without my permission. There was silence on the other end. Longer than I expected. "Ma'am," the man finally said slowly, "before we talk about buying it back." He lowered his voice. "You need to come down here." My heart tightened. "Why?" I asked. Another pause. "Because," he said, "we found something inside the watch." The ticking was gone, but whatever my husband had left behind had just started moving again. The pawn shop was only 10 minutes away, but it felt like crossing a border. I drove slower than usual, hands tight on the steering wheel, my mind replaying my son's voice over and over. "Stop whining." The words had a weight to them I couldn't shake. Not cruelty, exactly something worse. Indifference. The shop sat on a narrow street between a shuttered laundromat and a payday loan office. The kind of place you don't enter unless you have to. A bell rang when I pushed the door open, sharp and loud in the small space. The man behind the counter looked up and studied my face for a second, longer than polite. "You must be Mrs. Adler," he said. I nodded, surprised. He gestured for me to come closer. "I'm the one you spoke to." He didn't ask me to repeat my story. That alone told me this wasn't just about buying something back. He reached under the counter and placed a small tray on the glass. The watch lay there. My breath caught in my throat. It looked exactly the same. Polished, heavy, familiar, the face still, the hands frozen at a time that no longer mattered. For a moment, I forgot everything else. I reached for it instinctively. He gently raised his hand. Before you touch it, I should explain. My heart began to pound. We authenticate high-value items, he continued. That means opening the case. And, I asked, though my voice barely came out. And inside, he said slowly, there was something that shouldn't have been there. He slid something across the counter. Not the watch. A tiny folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges, creased so many times it looked fragile. My husband's handwriting stared back at me. I recognized it instantly. The careful slant. The way he crossed his T's twice. My knees went weak. I can sit, I said quickly. The man nodded and pulled out a chair. I unfolded the paper with shaking hands. The first line made my breath hitch. If you are reading this, then I am gone. Tears blurred the words, but I forced myself to keep going. And if this watch was sold or taken from you, then someone has crossed a line I hoped they never would. I covered my mouth. The shop disappeared around me. Below the writing were numbers, dates, short phrases that made no sense yet, but they were deliberate, too deliberate to be sentimental. This isn't all, the man said quietly. He reached into a drawer and placed a small sealed bag on the counter. Inside was a metal capsule, smaller than my fingernail. We found this inside the band, he said. Hidden. It took time. What is it? I asked. A data capsule, he replied. Encrypted, old-fashioned, but effective. My husband worked in finance for years before retiring. He trusted systems, but only after he broke them apart and rebuilt them himself. He hid this, I whispered. The man nodded. And he hid it well. I stared at the watch again. It had never just been a watch. It was a container, a safeguard, a test. How much to get it back? I asked. He named the price. Reasonable. Almost insulting, considering what it now represented. I paid without hesitation. As he wrapped the watch, he hesitated. Ma'am, whoever sold this had no idea what it contained. I know, I said quietly. But someone tried to access it, he added. That's how we noticed. My stomach tightened. Access it how? From outside, he said. Digitally. I closed my eyes. My son. I walked out of the shop with the watch in my purse, heavier than before, not with gold, but with intention. In the car, my phone buzzed. My son. I let it ring. Then I answered. Did you get it? He asked impatiently. Yes, I said. Good. Then can we drop this already? You sold something that wasn't yours, I replied. And you didn't know what you were selling. Silence. What do you mean? He asked. I mean your father left something behind, I said, my fingers tightening around the purse. And you almost lost it forever. I hung up before he could respond. That night, I laid everything out on the table. The watch, the note, the capsule. For the first time since my husband died, I understood something clearly. He hadn't been preparing for death. He had been preparing for betrayal. And tomorrow, I would find out exactly why. I didn't open the capsule that night. Some truths deserve daylight. At dawn, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't drink, the watch resting beside my laptop like an accusation. The capsule was colder than I expected. When I picked it up, smooth, precise, indifferent. My husband had always liked objects that did exactly what they were made to do. I turned it between my fingers and noticed the micro-etching along one edge. Not decorative, instructional. I found a small card tucked beneath the watch band, one I hadn't seen before. On it, in his handwriting, were 2 words and a number. Call Helena, 917. That was all. Helena answered on the second ring. I was wondering when this would surface, she said, not unkindly. My breath caught. You knew? I knew he prepared something, she replied. He didn't tell me where, only how. How? I asked. By choosing a lock that wouldn't fail him, she said, and a key that wouldn't betray him. I swallowed. He chose a watch. He chose you, she corrected gently. The watch was just the container. She guided me step by step, a specific reader, a specific time window. The capsule wasn't just encrypted, it was timed. It would open only if the watch had been removed from my possession and an unauthorized access attempt had been made. Has there been one? She asked. Yes, I said. Yesterday. Then it's ready, she replied. When you are. I plugged in the reader. The capsule clicked softly as it seeded an old, reassuring sound, like a door finding its frame. Apprendre. Verify primary beneficiary. Helena instructed me to type my full name and my husband's birth date. I did. My hands steadied as the cursor blinked. Verification complete. A folder opened. Inside were 3 files. 1. Letter. 2. Her. 2. Account. Map. 3. Conditions. I opened the letter first. If you're reading this, then the watch left her hands. My throat tightened. I'm sorry. Not because I'm gone, but because I was right. I closed my eyes and kept reading. I love our son. But I stopped trusting him when love stopped slowing him down. I saw impatience where there should have been care. I saw entitlement where there should have been gratitude. I tried to correct it quietly. I failed. My chest ached not with surprise, but recognition. This isn't punishment. It's protection. For you, and for the truth. I opened account. Map next. Numbers populated the screen, accounts layered beneath accounts, shielded and lawful. A structure built to endure pressure. To survive curiosity. How much? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Helena didn't answer immediately. Enough, she said at last. Enough to remove urgency from your life. Then I opened conditions. The language was simple, ruthless in its clarity. Access transfers to spouse upon trigger. No access for descendants without written consent. Any attempt by descendants to bypass consent results in permanent lockout. Permanent. I felt cold. Did he really think? I started. He didn't think, Helena said softly. He verified. My phone buzzed on the table. My phone. I didn't answer. Helena continued. There's one more thing. Another file appeared. Logs. Timestamps. IP addresses. Attempts. All from the same device. All from my son's apartment. I loved him, I said, more to myself than to Helena. And you still can, she replied. But love doesn't require access. After the call ended, the house felt different. Not emptier, defined. I put the watch back on my wrist. For the first time since the funeral, it felt like more than memory. It felt like a boundary. An hour later, my son arrived. He didn't knock. You went behind my back, he said, breathless. I looked at him calmly. You went through my things. That watch wasn't yours, I finished. He scoffed. Dad would have wanted me to have it. I slid the laptop toward him. Read, I said. He read the letter once, then again. His face changed not to guilt, but to calculation. This doesn't prove anything, he said. It's just words. Then why did you try to access the accounts? I asked. Silence. I needed a bridge, he muttered. Just until my bonus hit. You sold your father's memory for airfare, I said quietly, and tested whether I would notice. He looked up sharply. So what? You'll cut me off? I considered him, the boy I raised, the man he became. I'm not cutting you off, I said. I'm cutting this off. I tapped the watch. He left without another word. This time, the door closed softly. That frightened me more than a slam. I returned to the table and closed the laptop. My husband hadn't left me a fortune to wield. He left me a clock to tell me when to stop waiting. By afternoon, the house had settled into a new quiet. Not the hollow quiet of grief. The deliberate kind, like a room after furniture has been rearranged, and nothing is tripping you anymore. I didn't chase my son. I didn't call him back. I had spent years smoothing his edges, filling gaps, paying for temporary problems that never stayed temporary. This time, I let the silence do its work. Silence reveals intent faster than confrontation ever will. I called my lawyer instead. She had known my husband longer than she'd known me. That mattered. When I told her about the watch, the capsule, the access attempts, she didn't sound surprised. He was preparing you, she said, not warning you. There's a difference. We reviewed everything that afternoon. The trust structure, the conditions, the trigger events. Legally solid, emotionally brutal. He anticipated pressure, she said, from inside the family. I nodded. He anticipated him. Your son has no legal claim, she continued. But that doesn't mean he won't try something else. What kind of something else? I asked. She didn't hesitate. Guilt, narrative, allies. She was right. By evening, the messages started. A cousin asking if I was okay. An aunt wondering why my son sounded so upset. A family friend reminding me that children make mistakes. The story was already moving, softening his choices, sharpening my boundaries into cruelty. I didn't correct anyone. I let the version travel, because stories told too quickly collapse under their own weight. At 9:14 p.m., my son made his next move. I know the exact time, because Helena forwarded the alert. Second access attempt blocked. Different device. Different location. Same impatience. I stared at the screen and felt something shift, not anger, not sadness. Finality. I texted him once. Stop trying. You're making this worse. The response came immediately. You're being dramatic. I just need transparency. Transparency? From the man who sold a hidden watch and lied about it. I closed my phone, called my lawyer. Lock it down, I said. All of it. She didn't ask questions. The next morning, my son showed up again. This time with papers. Printed, highlighted, confident. I talked to someone, he said, stepping inside without waiting. This isn't as airtight as you think. I gestured to the chair. Sit, I said. He didn't. You're grieving, he continued. People make bad decisions when they're emotional. Dad wouldn't want... Enough, I said. The word landed heavier than shouting ever could. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the final letter. Not the one he'd read. The one my husband told me to open only if our son pushed again. I hadn't wanted to believe it would come to this, but my husband had. I slid the envelope across the table. Read, I said. His confidence wavered. He opened it. If you are holding this letter, then you didn't stop when you should have. His face drained of color. I'm disappointed. Not surprised. Disappointed. You were raised better than this. He looked up at me. I didn't look away. Your mother is not withholding anything from you. She is protecting herself. If you cannot respect that, then distance is not punishment. It is necessity. He swallowed. This is manipulation, he said hoarsely. No, I replied. This is consequence, written by the man who knew you best. He folded the letter with shaking hands. You're choosing his words over me, he said. I stood. I'm choosing reality over denial, I replied. He left without another argument. No threats. No apologies. Just calculation retreating to regroup. That night, I placed the watch back on my wrist before bed. The ticking was steady, measured, unemotional. My husband hadn't left me a trap. He'd left me a test. And our son had taken it twice. Tomorrow, I would decide what distance looks like, and whether love survives it. I slept better than I expected. Not because everything was resolved, but because it wasn't circling anymore. The watch ticked with the same calm insistence it always had, and for the first time since my husband's death, I wasn't listening for it to comfort me. I was listening to measure distance. Morning light revealed dust I hadn't noticed before. The house looked lived in again, honest. I made tea and didn't rush it. Then I made the call. My lawyer arrived before noon with a slim folder and a heavier look. We sat at the kitchen table where my husband used to read the paper, the watch face catching the light between us. "We can formalize this," she said. "But understand, once it's formal, it's firm." "That's the point," I replied. We reviewed the plan slowly. Not punitive, protective. A trust amendment that clarified access none without my written consent. A no-contact clause tied to attempts at access or coercion. A mediator requirement for any future conversation about finances. A cooling-off period measured in months, not days. "This isn't exile," she said gently. "It's structure." I signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. It always does when you choose yourself after years of choosing around someone else. By late afternoon, the message went out not to my son, but to the system that had been built to withstand him. Lock confirmed. Conditions active. Helena followed with a note. "It's done. Take a breath." I did. My son called that evening. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Did you really lock me out?" he demanded. "I protected myself," I replied. "That money is family money," he snapped. "No," I said. "It's responsibility money, and you've treated it like an ATM." Silence. Then a laugh that didn't reach his chest. "So that's it? You're choosing a watch and some letters over me." I looked at the watch on my wrist. "I'm choosing truth over pretending," I said. "Those letters exist because pretending already failed." "You're punishing me," he said. "I'm stopping a pattern," I replied. "Punishment would look very different." He exhaled sharply. "You're going to regret this." I waited. When the threat didn't evolve into anything else, I spoke again. "You're welcome to talk with a mediator. You're not welcome to pressure." "You think a piece of paper stops me?" he asked. "I think your choices will," I said. I ended the call. 2 days passed. Then 3. No messages, no cousinly check-ins. The story he'd been telling stalled when it couldn't be fed new outrage. On the 4th day, he showed up again. He stood on the porch longer this time, knocked once, then waited. I opened the door. He looked tired. Not repentant, just tired. "I need help," he said. I didn't step aside. "Help with what?" I asked. "Rent," he said. "Just until next month." I considered him carefully the way he stood, the way he framed the ask as inevitability. "I can help you find resources," I said. "I can help you budget. I can help you plan." "Mom," he said, frustrated. "You know what I mean." "Yes," I replied. "And that's why the answer is no." His jaw tightened. "So, you're really doing this?" "I already did," I said. "I'm not changing it at the door." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. Once. "Fine," he said. "Then don't call me when you need something." I met his eyes. "I won't." He turned and walked away. This time, I felt the loss. It arrived cleanly, without drama, like a bruise you notice only when you press on it. That night, I took the watch off and placed it back on the nightstand. Not because I was done wearing it, because it had done its job. It had marked the moment when love stopped excusing behavior and started requiring it. I slept without listening. In the morning, an email arrived from Helena. "No further attempts. The system is quiet." Quiet felt Ernest. I closed the laptop and opened the curtains. The day moved forward. So did I. I didn't know what the future held: distance, repair, or something in between. But I knew this. The boundary would hold, because it wasn't built from anger. It was built from time kept honestly, finally, by the one thing my husband trusted to never lie. The first consequence wasn't financial. It never is. It showed up as silence that didn't bend. No angry texts. Nah, late-night calls. No dramatic messages sent through relatives. Just absence. And absence, I learned, is expensive in ways people don't calculate. A week passed, then 2. My son didn't reach out, not to argue, not to apologize, not even to demand. That told me more than shouting ever could. He was waiting for me to blink. I didn't. Instead, life rearranged itself, slowly, naturally. I joined a morning walking group at the park, the kind filled with people who don't explain themselves much. We nodded, we walked, we respected pace. I cooked again, not large meals meant to impress, simple ones that made the house smell like intention. I slept through the night. The watch stayed in the drawer now, not hidden, resting. The call came from an unexpected number. My sister-in-law, not his side of the family, mine. I heard he moved out of his apartment, she said carefully. I closed my eyes. Moved out? I asked. Evicted, she corrected gently. She waited for me to react. I didn't. He said you cut him off, she continued. That you chose money over him. I smiled faintly. He chose pressure over honesty, I said. This is the result, she sighed. He's angry. I know, I replied. Anger is easier than responsibility. That evening, Helena emailed again. He tried to open a new account using his father's name. It failed. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, "Thank you for telling me." Nothing more. My son showed up 2 nights later. Not at my door, at my neighbor's. I saw him from the window, standing under the streetlight, talking too fast, gesturing with both hands. My neighbor listened, nodded, then shook her head. He walked away. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt gravity. The next morning, I received an envelope, handwritten, from him. Inside was a single page. No apology, no accusation. Just one sentence. I don't know how to fix this without you. I sat with that sentence for a long time. Then I folded it and placed it beside the watch. He didn't know how to fix it. That was true. But fixing wasn't the same as reaching. I wrote back, 1 page. Careful words. I'm not the lever that moves your life anymore. I'm the boundary that protects mine. When you're ready to talk without asking me to bend, I'll be here. I mailed it. Didn't keep a copy. That night, I wore the watch again. Not as armor, as acknowledgement. Peace doesn't arrive loudly. It settles. It sits with you while you do ordinary things and doesn't demand proof. I missed my son. I always would. But I no longer missed who I had been trying to be for him. And that difference was worth everything hidden inside the watch. Time doesn't argue. It doesn't bargain. It doesn't soften just because someone is uncomfortable. It simply moves forward and takes excuses with it. 3 months passed. Not dramatically, quietly. My son didn't call, didn't text, didn't send messages through other people. For the first time in his adult life, he had nothing to leverage. No emergency, no crisis I could solve with a transfer or a phone call. No sentimental object left to sell. I learned later that he moved again. Smaller place, cheaper rent, farther from the version of himself he'd imagined. Reality has a way of resizing people. One afternoon, Helena called not with an alert, but with a question. He hasn't tried to access anything in weeks, she said. Do you want to loosen anything? I thought about it. No, I said. I want to see who he becomes without resistance. She understood immediately. I started volunteering twice a week at a community archive, helping catalog personal letters and donated items. Watches, rings, photographs, lives reduced to objects. But when you read carefully, the objects speak. One day, a man about my son's age came in to donate his father's tools. He handled them gently, reverently. I didn't appreciate these when he was alive, he said. I'm trying to do better now. I nodded. That sentence stayed with me. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Handwritten again, Different tone. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for access. I'm asking if we can talk without fixing anything. I read it twice, then once more. I waited a full day before replying. Coffee. Saturday. 1 hour. Nothing else. He arrived early. That was new. He looked thinner, not defeated, focused. The kind of focus that comes when shortcuts are no longer available. I don't know where to start, he said after we sat down. Then don't start, I replied. Continue. He swallowed. I didn't think you'd really stop, he admitted. I thought you'd cool off. I didn't cool off, I said. I woke up. He nodded slowly. I sold the watch because I thought it was just value, he said. I didn't think about what it carried. I know, I replied. That's why your father hid it. He flinched, not defensively, but honestly. I didn't understand him, he said. Or you. No, I agreed. You didn't. We talked for 47 minutes. About choices. About pressure. About what happens when people confuse inheritance with entitlement. He didn't apologize. Not yet. But he didn't argue either. That mattered. As we stood to leave, he hesitated. I don't expect things to go back, he said. They won't, I replied. He nodded. I think that's okay. When I got home, I took the watch off and set it gently in its case. Its work was almost done. Some lessons aren't loud. They arrive only after leverage disappears. And only then do people hear what time has been saying all along. Forgiveness didn't arrive with a feeling. It arrived with a rule. I thought for a long time that forgiveness would feel like relief, like a knot loosening, like air returning to a room. Instead, it felt like clarity without softness, a clean edge, a decision that didn't need reassurance. My son didn't ask for anything after our coffee. That mattered. Weeks passed. We spoke once more, briefly. Then again, a little longer. Conversations without urgency are strange when you're used to being needed. They don't rush you. They don't flatter you. They ask you to stay present. I stayed, but I didn't lean. One evening, I took the watch to a specialist, not to sell, not to authenticate, to service. The man examined it carefully, nodded, and said, "It's in remarkable condition. Someone took care of this." "Yes," I said. He did. When he handed it back, the ticking sounded different to me. Not louder, more precise. As if it were done reminding me. My son called 2 days later. "I found a job," he said. "Temporary, nothing special." "That's good," I replied. "It doesn't pay much." "I know," I said. He waited. I didn't fill the silence. "I wanted you to hear it from me," he said finally. "Not because I need help, just because—" "That's how trust starts," I said. He hesitated. "Do you think Dad would have been proud?" I closed my eyes. "Yes," I said. "Of the work, not the words." That night, I opened the drawer and took out the watch's case. Inside, beneath the velvet, was the folded note. I hadn't read it in weeks. I read it once more. Then I placed it back. Some messages are meant to be received, not rehearsed. Forgiveness, I learned, is not forgetting. It's not excusing. It's not restoring access. Forgiveness is allowing the future to exist without dragging the past behind it. I decided then what forgiveness would look like for me. It would look like conversation without control, presence without payment, care without collateral. The trust remained locked, the conditions unchanged, the boundaries intact, and for the first time, those boundaries didn't feel like walls. They felt like doors with clear handles. I stopped wearing the watch daily, not because it mattered less, because I mattered more. When my son visited next weeks later, he noticed. "You're not wearing it," he said. "No," I replied. "I don't need it on my wrist anymore." He nodded, understanding more than he said. As he left, he turned back once. "I'm glad you got it back," he said. "The watch." "So am I replied. "But not for the reason you think." That night, the house was quiet again, but it wasn't holding its breath. Time did what it always does. It tested everything. Another 6 months passed. Not cleanly. Not dramatically. Just honestly. My son kept working. Changed jobs once. Then again. Nothing glamorous. Nothing impressive. But consistent. That mattered more than any apology. We spoke occasionally. Birthdays. Holidays. No money discussed. No favors implied. When silence appeared, it wasn't heavy anymore. It was simply space. One afternoon, Helena called with a final update. "No activity," she said. "None. Not even curiosity." I thanked her and hung up. The system had done what it was built to do. Now it was my turn. I took the watch out of its case that evening, held it in my hands. For the first time, it felt light. Not because it mattered less, but because it no longer had to carry anything. Not secrets. Not warnings. Not fear. I thought about my husband, about how he'd hidden something so carefully, not to punish, but to protect. And about how protection, eventually, has to become choice. The next day, I went back to the archive where I volunteered. A new donation had come in. A man's watch. Different brand. Same story. The donor couldn't bear to keep it. "I don't know what to do with it," he said. "It feels too heavy." I understood that feeling perfectly. That night, I made a decision I hadn't planned. I placed the Rolex back in its case, added the note, and sealed it. I wrote a new letter. Not instructions, not conditions. Truth. This watch once protected me. Now it represents something else. Time doesn't belong to anyone. But what we do with it does. I didn't give it to my son. Not yet. I gave it to time. I arranged for it to be held documented, preserved, and inaccessible until a future moment I hadn't chosen yet. Not punishment. Perspective. When my son visited the following week, I told him, "I secured your father's watch," I said. "It's safe." He nodded. Didn't ask where. That told me everything. "I'm not ready," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. As he left, I noticed something. He didn't look at my wrists anymore. He didn't calculate. He didn't ask. That night, I slept deeply, without listening, without guarding. Time had stopped negotiating, and I had stopped needing proof. The watch didn't come back to my wrist. It didn't need to. A year passed. Quietly. Fully. The kind of year where nothing explodes. And that's how you know healing is real. My son didn't become a different person overnight. He became a slower one. He learned to wait. To earn. To sit with discomfort without trying to trade it for cash or charm. We spoke once a month. Sometimes less. Sometimes more. No rehearsed apologies. No grand gestures. Just presence. On the anniversary of my husband's death, I went to the cemetery alone. I didn't bring flowers. I brought clarity. "I found it," I said softly. "What you hid." The wind moved through the trees. No answer. But I didn't need one. I told him about the archive. About the letters. About how time feels different when it's not being negotiated. I told him I understood now why he chose a watch. Because watches don't plead. They don't explain. They don't forgive too early. They just keep going, honestly. 2 weeks later, my son asked if we could talk. Not about money. About him. "I used to think inheritance was about things," he said. "Then I thought it was about access." He looked at me. I was wrong. I waited. "It's about trust," he said, and I broke it. I nodded. "Yes," I said. "You did." He didn't flinch. That mattered more than any apology. "I don't expect the watch," he added quickly, "or anything else." "I know," I replied. That night, I took the case out again. For the first time, I opened it with no urgency. Inside was the watch, the note, the letter I'd written. I added one more page. Not instructions, a memory. Your father believed time tells the truth eventually. He was right. If you are reading this, then you waited. I sealed the case again, not because I was done, because I wasn't ready to rush the ending. Legacy, I realized, isn't about what you leave behind. It's about what you refuse to let be misused. The watch would one day change hands. Not as leverage, not as reward, not as proof, but as responsibility. And if it never did, that would be okay too. Because the most important thing my husband left me wasn't gold or numbers or secrets. It was the courage to stop confusing love with permission. The house is quiet now, but it's not holding its breath. It's living. The ticking is gone. And for the first time, that feels exactly right.